Yo, it's Star Knight Andylex, and I've got a mind-blowing theory that's about to take your imagination on a wild ride, so hear me out. In One Piece, the line between good and evil is very thin. I think Oda is challenging the idea of what makes a god and what makes a devil. He's shown us how evil a god can be, but what about devils? What if it were to possess the very soul of a person who eats a devil fruit? Also, have you ever wondered what happened before the Void Century? I believe gods and devils roamed the planet during that time, but where are they now? And have you ever wondered how the Red Line was created? Well, in this video, I'll tell you. But before we begin, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It'll mean the world to me if you do. It would also really help the channel out. The fate of the world depends on it. I upload One Piece theories and live reactions to my channel. Throughout the series, we've seen references to gods, devils, and even Satan. In an author's note for volume 70, Oda said, "Cows look fabulous with their horns. I wish I would just grow horns one day. Since the dawn of time, men have always wanted horns. It's normal to have horns. They look so manly after all. I guess they'd be slightly inconvenient when going to bed, and it'd probably be difficult to do headers in soccer. And when you face your desk, you might keep hitting your desk lamp and groan in annoyance. Oh, cows also groan, don't they? Here's what I think. What if devils were one of the first races on the planet? Devils are usually depicted with horns. This author's note may very well be Oda telling us about how life was before the Void Century. Characters have shown signs of being possessed by a devil on multiple occasions as well. One example is with devil fruits. It has been stated that devils reside in devil fruits. I believe a person who eats a devil fruit also gets possessed by a devil. The devils attach themselves to the eater of the fruit, but there's other ways of getting possessed, and it's not with just a devil fruit. Look at Zoro getting possessed by the Ashura, Chopper getting possessed after eating a rumble ball, Sanji in Thriller Bark turning into an actual devil, Robin fighting Black Maria, Usopp whenever he dons the Soga King mask, and finally Luffy after awakening the devil inside his fruit. Yes, I believe Nika was a devil. If you look closely at Nika's silhouette, it looks like there's two horns on their head. That's not just their hair. We've also seen Luffy with horns a handful of times in the manga and anime. Check this out. As you can see, Oda has teased us with Luffy having horns. This may be some next level foreshadowing by Oda. What if Luffy's final true form is him with actual horns? Back in Dressrosa, people would refer to Luffy as Lucy, which is also short for Lucifer. In the book of Isaiah, it refers to Luffy as the Morning Star and Son of Dawn. Words like Son of Dawn and Lightbringer can easily connect Lucifer to Nika and even Luffy. Lucifer is known in some interpretations of the Bible as the angel who rebelled against God. How you have fallen from heaven, O star of the morning, Lightbringer, son of the dawn, you have been cut down to the ground, you who have weakened the nations. I believe Oda is playing with the idea of good and evil. What if in One Piece, gods are evil and devils are good? In John Milton's Paradise Lost, which is a retelling of Adam and Eve, Lucifer, an angel, led a revolt against God. As punishment for his actions, God cast Lucifer out of heaven. He took on the name Satan and became enemies with God. So in this video, when I'm talking about Lucifer, I'm also talking about Satan. Let's say Imu is like a god and Luffy represents a fallen angel. I think he'll rebel against Imu just like Lucifer did. Hades from Greek mythology also has parallels to Lucifer. Both are associated with the afterlife. Hades is the god of the underworld, and Lucifer is sometimes referred to as the ruler of hell. Thriller Bark could also represent the Straw Hats going to Hades, which is the underworld. We see zombies and even a Cerberus there, which would fit the theme. In Greek lore, the Cerberus was a gift to Hades. The Cerberus is a three-headed dog. It became Hades' loyal guard dog for the gates of the underworld. Well, we see one in Thriller Bark, and Luffy actually tames it. This may actually be Oda telling us that Luffy found his loyal guard dog just like Hades. Also, in Japan, Hades is pronounced as Hades, and if you break it up, Ha means teeth in Japanese, and Des sounds like death since TH isn't used in the language, so it sounds like you're laughing at death. I think this also connects to Nika, whose name is also an onomatopoeia for smiling and grinning. Oda used wordplay with the sound effects for smiling in Japanese. Luffy actually did laugh at death when Buggy was about to kill him in Loketown. I think Oda could be associating Luffy to Hades by using the wordplay with Hades, as well as connecting the laughing and smiling of Nika. Let's say Nika died. His death would be similar to what Dr. Hieroglyphica said. When do you think people die? When they are shot through the heart by a bullet of a pistol? No. When they are ravaged by an incurable disease? No. When they drink a soup made from a poisonous mushroom? No. It's when they are forgotten. The government wanted Nika to be forgotten by all of humanity. His name was forgotten for centuries. And this could be parallel to the death of Pan, a god who was killed by Christianity. Pan is the god of the wild, shepherds, and rustic music, and was often associated with Satan, the devil. In ancient pagan mythology, Pan was a creature that was half goat and half human. It had horns like that of a goat and was skilled at playing the flute. Over time, people started to link Pan with Satan. Pan ruled the lower nature of man, its animal side, similar to how Satan is associated with the darker side of humanity. So when a person hears about a deity that's half man, half goat, with horns and hooves, the first image that may pop into their head is that of Satan. The rise of Christianity started to associate Pan with the devil. So if you believed in Pan, that would be heresy towards Christianity. This reminded me of the world government and Emu. They tried their best to erase the story and influence of Nika through the years. I think just by praying or believing in the sun god would be considered heresy to the world government. We've seen the consequences with just the mention of Nika, such as the guard who told Who's Who about him. Then there's Kuma's father after being captured by the world nobles. I also find what Saturn said to Kuma interesting. In chapter 1096, he said the Buccaneers' faith in Nika was one of the reasons why they were erased. I think this is similar to the Spanish Inquisition. It was a way for the Spanish monarchy to root out any heretics or non-Christians living under their rule in Spain. Its brutal methods led to widespread death and suffering. This is what I believe happened. The world government wanted to wipe out all of the Nika followers, a religion Emu despised. In chapter 1104, we see Kuma kneeling in front of a cross, possibly praying while holding on to Bonnie. But this cross is different. It has a sun in the middle. What if this was the true symbol for sun god Nika's religion, the symbol of the sun god? The government took it away and used it as their own. But without the sun, they removed it, like how they tried to remove Nika from history. Doesn't it look like the symbol for the world government? Also, it seems like the celestial dragons stole the sun symbol and made it their own. They altered it into a dragon hoof. It's like the world government and the celestial dragons took the fire away from the people and made them into slaves. That sun symbol with the cross is what symbolized humanity's freedom. So I believe Nika and Luffy are associated with the god of the wild Pan. Pan died with the birth of Christianity, the birth of Christ, just like how Nika may have died with the birth of the world government and the rise of the 20 kingdoms. Pan can also mean bread in Spanish and Japanese. It's pronounced like Pan. Throughout the series, we've seen references to Pan. In chapter 791, we see Sanji wearing an apron that says Pan on it. In SBS 813, Oda mentions how Law dislikes bread. There's also this cover panel where we see Luffy trying to get Law to eat bread. What if this image is sun god Nika inside of Luffy trying to rally Law to his side? I believe it's Luffy trying to form a connection with Law. In chapter 668, Luffy and Law formed an alliance on Punk Hazard. Law merely saw it as an alliance, but Luffy saw it as the start of a friendship. Luffy wanting to share bread with Law is Oda telling us that Luffy wants to be friends with Law. We've seen other examples of bread being eaten in crucial moments for the Straw Hats. Chopper gets bread from Dr. Hieroglyphica, Sanji got bread from Zeph, and Saul shared bread with Robin. The breaking of bread signifies peace and friendship. Oda likes to put clues in his characters, and in this case with bread, he's using it as a way of connecting people. The rise of the government and the 20 kingdoms ruined the image of Nika. Nika was practically forgotten. The government is supposed to represent a corrupt Christianity. The symbol on the flag looks like a cross, possibly to ward off devils, evil spirits, and possession. Speaking of crosses, we've seen them throughout the series, like when Chopper used one in Thriller Bark. This could also be linked to possession and evil spirits, since in Punk Hazard, we see Chopper bringing out the same cross from Thriller Bark on Kinemon. He thought Kinemon was an evil spirit. In Oda's one-shot Wanted, criminal Gilbastar killed the bounty hunter Wild Joe as a form of self-defense. What's interesting is that Joe became a ghost-like spirit and had the ability to possess Gil. I think this may have given Oda the inspiration for devils possessing people who eat devil fruits. And speaking of possession, we've seen the jailer beasts from Impel Down, who were potentially possessed by their zone fruit's will. It has been mentioned how zones have a will of their own. The jailer beasts were the first awakened users ever shown in the series. Crocodile mentioned this, as well as how their strength and recovery are their strong points. What if this is the result of the devil taking full control of the devil fruit user? There's a balance when it comes to devil fruits, one with your soul and the devil's soul. If your will is not strong enough, the devils will possess you. We've seen something similar with Luffy when he awakened his devil fruit after dying against Kaido. He wasn't himself, he was more free. This may have been the devil Nika trying to take over. Luffy dying woke up Nika. We just talked about crosses and possession. Now let's talk about the star pentagram. In chapter 1094, we see Saint Saturn appear from what looks like a star pentagram. Also, we've seen Oda use hidden star imagery in the volume covers of 20 and 75. This reminded me of the Baphomet sigil. It includes several symbolic elements, such as a goat head, a pentagram, and both male and female attributes. It has also been used as a symbol of rebellion. It was believed to be worshipped by the Knights Templar. They were a medieval Christian military who carried out an important mission to protect Christian pilgrims traveling to the Holy Land of Jerusalem. They wore white mantles with a red cross. Don't you think this looks similar to the symbol of the world government flag? They were also accused of worshipping Baphomet and denied God. I believe the Knights Templar inspired the Holy Knights, aka the God's Knights. They are an order of knights in service of the world government, who act as the official law enforcers of the Holy Land Merijois. What if the God's Knights were involved in some kind of ritual? In chapter 1096, we see Garland with another knight who's wearing a skull with horns. This may be a reference to Baphomet and how the Templars were accused of worshipping it. Baphomet is a symbol of balance in various occult and mystical traditions. This deity is usually tied to the devil. It sports wings and a torch between its horns and a pentagram on its forehead. The torch on the head represents the universal balance. The two fingers on the right hand point up at a crescent moon, and the two on the left hand point down at another crescent moon, meaning as above, so below. This phrase is interpreted as the perfect harmony of mercy with justice. The fingers pointing upward represent Hesed, and the fingers pointing downward represent Gevora. Hesed signifies mercy, and Gevora signifies judgment. It balances Hesed, ensuring justice and limitation. Don't you think the two moons that symbolize mercy and judgment look familiar? Check this out. The symbol of the marine flag has two moons, just like the depiction from the Baphomet. Those moons on the flag may very well represent mercy and judgment. Doesn't the M-shaped bird on the flag look like a pair of horns? Could that symbol represent some kind of devil? I think the M-shaped bird also looks like the zodiac sign of Aries. We'll get back to that later in the video. Also, another thing I noticed was that a reversed crescent moon is the symbol of rebellion. We see Kinemon mention this in chapter 921. We also see a reversed crescent moon in the marine flag. Could this represent the balance between rebellion and order? I think a crescent moon looks like a smile, as well as the letter D. Maybe the D could also represent rebellion. This would tie into Satan rebelling against God. This reminds me of what Corazon said in chapter 764. He points out how the D are enemies of gods. I think the D will rebel against the celestial dragons and the world government. The Marines at times are portrayed as corrupt and evil. Gods who are supposed to represent good are often portrayed evil as well, such as the celestial dragons. Emu may also represent some kind of god. What if the meaning to the Marine flag was lost to time? I believe the world government may be hiding secrets from the world, and these secrets may be tied to the Baphomet or something just as sinister. It seems like people used some kind of horned deity for rituals in the past and even the present. We've also seen several instances where rituals were done. Namakura Island, for example, this place was completely ravaged and the people there lived in poverty. They were relying on a demon summoning ritual to solve their problems. Coincidentally, Brook appeared while the people were doing the ritual, all thanks to the best dad Kuma and his pawpaw fruit powers. Since Brook landed during the ritual, Pecori and his people believed they successfully summoned Satan, the king of demons. The people on Namakura Island were offering up their own souls in hopes for Satan to defeat their enemies. They referred to Brook as Satan, so Satan is a thing in One Piece. We've also seen Kuma holding a Bible, which was one of the first signs of religion in the series. In chapter 1095, Kuma learned that his mother went up to heaven. I believe this is Oda teasing us with the existence of religion, such as there being a heaven and hell. The people of Namakura were also wearing hats that had a goat on them with horns and fur, which is another tie-in to the Baphomet and Satan and their goat-like depiction, very similar to the former Straw Hat Mary. What if this tribe knew about the same type of magic Saturn used on Egghead? What if Imu also used some kind of summoning circle as well? The tribe probably didn't offer enough souls. I think you might need a whole civilization of souls in order to summon some kind of deity. Oda is drawing parallels between Christianity and the world government. If you're against the government, you're considered a heretic. Oda is also drawing a connection between Satanism and being a pirate, symbolizing the desire for freedom. So here's what I think. The government is using the symbol of the cross to gain the trust and support of the world. What if they used the symbol of the cross to repel demons and devils, as well as the devils trapped inside devil fruits? If you believe in Nika, you were against the world government. Perhaps Imu and the Gorosei studied evil black magic or even alchemy in order to gain control of the world. It was the sun symbol versus the cross. What do you all think of this image? This is Yaldabaoth. This image comes from Gnosticism. It's the idea that only through obtaining secret knowledge can people find their salvation and overcome the material world. In Gnosticism, there is a supreme god, the monad, that is good and perfect, but is withdrawn from the world and is beyond human understanding. The Demiurge, Yaldabaoth, is a cheap knockoff of the supreme god. This false god created the material universe, a world filled with pain and suffering. He also created people and trapped their souls into mortal bodies. Yaldabaoth is the ruler of the world. I think this may be how Imu became the true ruler of the world. What if Imu created it as their own and trapped the souls of devils and gods into fruits? Well, that's what I believe. A person gets possessed by a devil when they eat a fruit. The souls of devils were once free on the planet. Imu didn't like how they were free and wild, so Imu trapped them into fruits. Another thing is the supreme god. Who is it? What if this supreme god is supposed to represent Oda? He created Imu, but Imu saw themselves as the god of the world instead, a false god. It is said in Gnostic lore that Satan rebelled when he realized that the Demiurge was not the true god. Satan granted humanity the knowledge to liberate themselves from the Demiurge. I believe this is parallel to Luffy, since I think he represents the devil Satan, and Luffy might actually do this later in the story. This is what I think. Luffy would liberate the world from Imu's influence. Imu is the false god and tried to erase Nika from history. Luffy will rebel against Imu and let the world know the truth of Imu's existence. In a volume 62 note, Oda said, "If you trace the roots of people's DNA, our blood all leads to a single woman from a long time ago in Africa. Despite this, theoretically speaking, she was not the earliest human around, but such a person must exist. The beginning of humanity, the mother of humanity." It sounds intense, so I tried drawing a picture in her image. All of humanity is one big family. No matter who's in trouble, they're not a complete stranger. Oda is talking about how everyone's blood is connected to one woman from a long time ago. I believe Imu is supposed to represent her. Oda drew a picture of the mother of humanity. We see a girl with hair like a tree and a crescent-like figure on her hat. I think she looks similar to the symbol of the monad, aka the supreme god. This symbol is called the Manus Hieroglyphica. It represents the unity of all creation. This is what it looks like. Let's put these pictures side by side. We see a crescent moon on the top of the monad. The mother of humanity also has a crescent moon on her hat. Since I believe Imu is trying to act like a supreme god, what if Imu also represents the mother of humanity that Oda mentioned in the author's note? Here's what I think. After the fall of the ancient kingdom, Imu created a new world to rule over with the help of the Gorosei. Imu saw themselves as the creator of this new world. So wouldn't this make Imu the mother of this new world? This would go with what Oda was saying about how all our blood is connected to one person from a long time ago. The world government wiped out all traces of the past, and it's been revealed that Imu has been around since the time of the ancient kingdom. Let's get back to the monad symbol, because this is very interesting, and I think it inspired Oda with the creation of the Gorosei, as well as Imu. It's made up of 4 distinct symbols: the astrological signs for the moon and the sun, the cross, and the zodiac sign of Aries the ram, which is shown from the 2 semicircles at the bottom of the picture, and the cross represents the 4 elements. If you look closer, don't some of these symbols look familiar? The cross from the picture may be the cross from the government flag, and the 2 semicircles may be the marine flag. They look practically identical. This also made me think, what if the cross in the government flag is supposed to represent east, south, west, and north blue? This would make the 4 blues parallel to the 4 elements: earth, fire, water, and wind. Or maybe even the earth god, forest god, sun god, and rain god. If you look closely at the marine symbol, you will notice it looks very similar to the zodiac sign of Aries. One notable feature of Aries is its horns, which can also tie into the devil Satan and Baphomet, since both are depicted with horns. This Aries sign in the marine flag could tie the government into practicing black magic, or maybe even worshipping some kind of horned deity. The monad symbol also ties into the Gorosei. Different parts of the symbol could be combined to form other symbols, so you're able to get astrological symbols for Saturn, Jupiter, Mercury, Venus, and Mars. Well, there's 5 Gorosei, and this symbol seems to only be able to make 5 astrological signs. What if this symbol gave Oda the inspiration to create Imu and the 5 Gorosei, as well as the symbols of the world government flag and marine flag? Also, what if the circle is actually an O for Oda? I'm just joking, or am I? It's actually supposed to represent the sun with the earth at its center. That's the little dot you see. Also, the circle and cross together looks like the female symbol. Does this mean Imu is a woman? The crescent moon on top combines with the circle, which represents the zodiac sign Taurus. And you know whose zodiac sign is a Taurus? Luffy. He's the user of the Hito Hito no Mi model Nika. So the circle represents sun god Nika, and the crescent moon on the top combined with the circle represents Luffy. I also think Luffy is connected to the moon by his smile. It looks like a crescent moon. Earlier in the video, I brought up how I think devils were one of the first races on the planet. Well, here's the story of what I think happened in the past. Before the Void Century, gods and devils roamed freely. There was no red line, which meant the entire sea existed in boundless freedom. At the dawn of humanity, fire was one of the first signs of technology. People then started to connect the fire to the sun. They would pray to it and started calling it their sun god. They would dance around the fire, which would symbolize their freedom. Imu wanted to take this fire away from humanity, so Imu took their flame, which meant taking their freedom. This was the start of slavery in the world. The people prayed and dreamed for a sun god to come and save them. They would dream of being free again. Above the red line was a land of gods, referred to as godland. I believe the dreams acted as a tether to the mortal world. It would bring gods into the land of the living. Nika heard the people dreaming up from godland. I think people's dreams were like food to devils. I guess you could say eating a dream was like eating a fruit to them. They brought to life the dreams they ate. Nika pretty much became a sun god after eating humanity's dream for a sun god. The same can be said for other dreams. Gods and devils were bringing to life many dreams. It was considered taboo to leave the godland. The gods in godland had white wings, but they would change to the color black when leaving godland, and they grew horns. They pretty much became fallen angels. In other words, devils. Nika meddled with human affairs and gave them back their fire. He liberated the slaves from Imu's control. This is what started the legend of sun god Nika. The moon people, aka the Shandians, Lunarians, Burkans, and Skypians landed in different parts of the world. For example, some may have landed in Jaya and others could have landed in Godland. They brought their advanced technology with them. I think gods, devils, and the moon people's technology helped humanity evolve at a fast rate. In chapter 1069, Vegapunk talks about how each devil fruit embodies a different wish someone had for our evolution. This may be tied to how devils brought the dreams of people to life. I think devils became physical manifestations of these dreams. Their wisdom from previously being a god was also shared with humans. They even started to have offspring with humans. All this sped up evolution for humanity. Emu didn't like how humanity was evolving. Emu wanted to reset the world and rid it of the abominations that gods and devils had created. I think Emu destroyed multiple ancient kingdoms, but people would always leave fragments of their knowledge so humanity could rebuild again. The world may have been caught in a cycle where people would evolve too fast and technology would get too advanced, so Emu would wipe them out. But they would always manage to start over. What if the poneglyphs left by the ancient kingdom weren't the first time fragments of history were left behind? Years later, the fire was taken again from the ancient kingdom by Emu and the world government. This was the Void Century, and Nika, being reborn as Luffy, will be the person to give back the fire to humanity. I think the devil fruits are the dreams of the people from before the Void Century, as well as gods and devils. Their souls are trapped inside the fruits. A devil would consume a person's dream, and later a person would consume a devil fruit containing both a dream and a devil. I think the Gorosei might be similar to devils or demons like yokai. They could have fed on the fears of people. They brought to life fear itself, such as Saturn and his spider-like appearance, which might tie into how people have arachnophobia. This is similar to how a devil is made in Chainsaw Man. They are born in hell with the name that corresponds to something that invokes fear. Each devil possesses a unique name tied to a specific fear. For example, the gun devil is born out of the fear of guns. Their existence lasts as long as people fear them. Before Emu, the celestial dragons, and the Gorosei made Merijois their home, there were gods who originally lived there. In chapter 1023, Marco mentioned how there was a god's land above the red line, where Merijois is today. I think this is proof that the red line was around long before the Void Century. In chapter 274, we see Enel talking about how there were gods who resided in a place of endless birth, also known as fairy birth. He thought it was on the moon, and we saw him land on the moon. But what if it was supposed to be on the red line, since it's a massive stretch of earth that encircles the planet? It's actually a lot of earth, and it has been said that gods used to live on top of the red line. Alright, hear me out. What if there was a land of gods above Merijois, the real godland, a sky island inhabited by actual gods, and below this sky island would be where the Lunarians lived? In fact, there's a place called Heaven's Gate, and Skypia is referred to as Godland. Also, in the year 2000, Oda shared a map of the One Piece world. I'm assuming it was an early sketch. There's some interesting things on here. First, there's a place referred to as King's House. What if it was another place where Lunarians resided? Or would it be where King used to live? Another thing I noticed was how Oda spelled the Grand Line. In the map, it's spelled like Galand Line. What if that is supposed to represent God's land? Maybe gods also used to reside in the Grand Line. Its true name and history were lost in time. Enel wouldn't know about the existence of the Red Line since he's only been on the Sky Islands. Perhaps he misinterpreted the stories about Fairyverse. He wants to create a new godland. He also says gods have a place for gods, and humans have a place for humans. This further adds to the existence of a place for actual gods. I think they were all wiped out, and all that's left are the legends of them. I believe there is a holy land above it. Gods live there. Also, in Oda's one-shot, God's Gift for the Future, there's a god who watches the mortals of the planet from up in the clouds. This god even travels down to the planet and communicates with the human. This may have been what inspired Oda for ideas in One Piece. This god had a pen and an eraser that let him manipulate the events of the future. What if this god dropped the notebook with all the events of the story, along with the pen of fate and the eraser of fate? With the pen of fate, whatever you write will happen at the exact date and hour you specify, and the eraser of fate lets you erase things written with the pen of fate. Hear me out. What if Emu got their hands on both the pen and eraser of fate? Imu could have erased the fire from humanity, then later the ancient kingdom. Imu would have rewrote history, or maybe Imu somehow stole it. In Oda's one-shot, the god lost his eraser of fate. What if he never found it, and Imu took it? What if Imu is the pen of fate? I think the birth of Nika would be similar to Prometheus in Greek mythology, who is the god of fire who stole fire from the gods and gave it to humanity in the form of technology and knowledge. And I could see this being parallel to One Piece, since I think humanity rebuilt itself after Imu tried to destroy it. They believed another sun god would come and liberate them from Imu's control. Now this brings us to the Lunarians. I believe the Lunarians were inspired by the Nephilim from the book of Genesis. The Nephilim are described as giants or beings of great stature. They are believed to be the offspring of the sons of God and the daughters of men. We've also seen giants throughout the series. Even the government conducted research on giantification with the assistance of Vegapunk and Caesar. We've seen the result of Caesar's experiments by having kids consume large quantities of dangerous drugs and chemicals. We've also seen giants in the series, such as Dori and Bragi and Oimu and Kashi. I think giants were the offspring of humans and gods. Then the giants would have children with humans and create the Buccaneer race. In chapter 1095, the Buccaneers were revealed to be a race of large humans, possibly half giants. Kuma was the first Buccaneer we saw in the series. I think a devil and a human gave birth to the Oni race, and I think the Lunarians are the offspring of a devil and a person from the winged race, such as the Skypians, Shandians, or Birkins, which is why they have Lunar in their name and are seen as gods. King, for example, is 613 centimeters tall. In other words, he's about 20 feet tall. When you combine the maps of Jaya and Skypia, you get a skull. And in this map, we see a giant with horns. This may be an Oni. This might actually be before the Jaya Island was blasted to the sky. A devil had an offspring with a human and made an Oni. I think this map is proof of there being gods and devils in One Piece. And the whole theme from Jack and the Beanstalk fits with Skypia, since the story involves a giant up in the clouds. I think Yamato is a half Oni. She's the offspring of an Oni and human. They probably grew smaller in size through the generations of breeding with humans. I believe the D are ancestors of the Lunarians. This is why Luffy can use Red Rock, since Lunarians can manipulate fire. The Lunarians might be half gods, demigods. Luffy could be half Lunarian. We've also seen him with wings in this manga cover. The D could represent the half moon, which could mean half Lunarian. This brings me to a story in the Bible. In Genesis, it states, 7 days from now, I will send rain on the earth for 40 days and 40 nights, and I will wipe from the face of the earth every living creature I have made. And Noah did all that the Lord commanded him. God saw that the earth was corrupted with violence and blamed the Nephilim for this. In order to cleanse the earth of its sinners, God decided to flood it. This meant every living thing on the planet would die. There's actually an ark in Fishman Island called Noah. It was meant for the fishmen to enter the human world, but things didn't turn out as planned. I'm pretty sure the flood from the Bible and Noah's Ark is what inspired Oda for the creation of Noah. But what happened to the Nephilim after the flood? In the book of Peter, it mentions how some believed the lingering spirits of the Nephilim remained on earth and became what we know today as demons. This would explain the desire the demons have to possess humans, thus gaining control over a physical body. The rebellious Nephilim couldn't experience death like humans. As a consequence, these sinners were banished to Tartarus. Pretty much their spirits were trapped in hell. To be honest, this sounds like it could have happened in the past, before the Void Century. Imu was not happy with humanity's evolution, as well as the gods and devils having offspring with humans. They were infesting the planet with new races, such as the Lunarians, Oni, and Giants. So I think Imu took drastic measures and wiped out all of humanity. And since gods are known to be immortal, Imu had to imprison the souls of devils and gods into fruits. The only time they would be free is when a person eats the fruit they're trapped in. But how did Imu trap the souls into devil fruits? Well, we'll get back to that in a bit. What if some Lunarians managed to survive? They probably kept their bloodline alive up until the Void Century, which was a period of 100 years that was erased from history. Nobody knows what happened during that time. It occurred 800 to 900 years before the current events of the story. Here's what I think happened during the Void Century. Imu and the world government extinguished the Lunarians by taking over their home, which was above the red line. They were either killed or captured. I think the captured ones were used as prey in the the native hunting competition. We saw how people would hunt slaves. We've seen up to 100,000 people branded as prey during these hunts. They were referred to as rabbits. There were prizes in these hunts, such as Kaido's devil fruit and Kuma's devil fruit. The Lunarians were probably worth a lot of points. One by one, they were hunted down in this hunting competition. I also think Imu and the Gorosei used a nationwide transmutation circle to wipe out the ancient kingdom during the Void Century. We'll get back to this in a bit. In chapter 202, we see Robin and Cobra going underneath Alabasta. They were going to the Poneglyph, which gave out the location to Pluton. Check this out. If you look on the right of the panel, you'll see some giant-like serpent, and it seems like people were trying to fight it off. Could this serpent represent a Sea King, or what if it represents something else? I think it represents a planet-sized Sea King. I'll refer to it as a World Serpent. I believe Imu used the World Serpent as well as all the souls from the ancient kingdom as sacrifices in a ritual that involved a nationwide transmutation circle or some kind of magic circle in order to gain power. And this wasn't the first time they did it. I think Imu and the Gorosei previously used a circle to wipe out all the gods, devils, and mortals while gaining immortality in the process, long before the time of the ancient kingdom. But how did Imu learn how to use this type of alchemy? Or was it magic? What if it was something that was practiced by the pre-ancient kingdom? It may have been forbidden by the gods, and the Gorosei could have taught Imu how to perform this ritual. This reminded me of Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. In it, a king was tricked by a homunculus into making a nationwide transmutation circle. Everyone within the circle was used as an offering. This granted the homunculus immortality. What if this is what Imu did with the Gorosei? In chapter 233, we see what looks like transmutation circles around the room the Gorosei reside in. What if Imu and the Gorosei needed a humongous offering in order to receive immortality? So they sacrificed the World Serpent and everybody from Godland, as well as all life on the Blue Sea. They trapped everyone's soul into devil fruits. Also, if you look closely at these transmutation circles, one of them has what looks like a mermaid in the middle. Is this connected to Poseidon? I think it is. I believe Imu forced or blackmailed Poseidon to command a World Serpent. Poseidon has the power to communicate and control Sea Kings. Imu needed a large offering for the ritual, and that's where the World Serpent comes in. The emergence of this massive Sea King messed up the whole ecosystem. It led to massive floods and earthquakes, similar to what happened when Imu ordered the use of the Mother Flame. Everyone within the circle would have their souls and dreams trapped inside fruits. These became devil fruits. Gods, people, and devils were trapped in there. The leftover fragments of the World Serpent are what became the red line we know of today. Also, only a few people managed to survive, and some of these survivors migrated underwater, which would explain the existence of fishmen and how humans evolved into fishmen. One thing I noticed was the red band around Luffy's straw hat. I believe this may actually represent the red line. Doesn't it remind you of it? The red line divides the sea into 4 parts: east, north, west, and south blue. It encircles around the planet like a ring. Also, doesn't this image look similar to a straw hat? This is the Ouroboros. It's a snake-like symbol that is seen eating its own tail. It represents the eternal cycle of destruction and rebirth. The Ouroboros has ties to alchemy, Egyptian, and Norse mythology. The red line may actually represent the Ouroboros. There's an interesting point Dory and Bragi made after destroying the large Sea King in the Little Garden arc. The only thing we cannot pierce is a snake soaked in blood. Could this be a reference to the red line? I believe it is, since I think the red line was once a giant Sea King. The Norse mythology version of the Ouroboros is Jormungandr, which is also referred to as the World Serpent, which is where I got the name of the massive Sea King Imu used. It encircles the realm of Midgard. A final battle will commence once it releases its tail, an event known as Ragnarok. I think breaking the red line would mean the start of a big war in this series, possibly mirroring Ragnarok. Would Luffy be able to break the red line? I think so. We might learn more about the red line in Elbaf, since it seems to be a place inspired by Norse mythology. The Ouroboros is also used as a symbol in alchemy, meaning the unity of all things. In an old alchemical manuscript called the Chrysopoeia of Cleopatra, it depicts a serpent eating its tail, and inside the circle are the words, "The all is one," which means everything in the world is interconnected, no matter how disconnected they are, and they are all part of the one entity, the universe. This reminded me of the famous line from Fullmetal Alchemist. Izumi said something similar. She told Edward and Alphonse that one is all is one, which meant if you die, the world continues on. You will decompose, become nutrients for plants. Herbivores eat those plants, and carnivores eat the herbivores. They die, and life starts over. The universe always moves forward, a constant cycle. It is the one thing that binds all together. That is alchemy itself. There's also Zeph, who ate his own leg, just like the Ouroboros serpent eating its tail. Zeph did what he needed to do, and life continued to move forward. Everything is connected. I also want to shout out Kusoland and Mr. UFO for sharing this about Zeph on Twitter. This is actually very similar to the inheritance of a person's will. You will die, but there will always be someone to carry on your will. Like Sabo inherited Ace's will of protecting Luffy from any harm. Then there's Yamato, who intends to inherit the will of Kazuki Oden and open the borders to Wano. There's also what Roger said, these things cannot be stopped. Inherited will, people's dreams, the ebb and flow of the ages. As long as people seek the answer to freedom, these will never cease to be. Dalton even wanted to inherit the will of the old king. I'll carry out the wishes of the old king until peace is restored to the kingdom. I refuse to die. This all goes with life being in a constant cycle. When a person dies, there will always be someone to inherit their will. And the same can be said about devil fruits. When a user dies, the fruit will come back again, and someone else can inherit those powers. The Will of D will always live. I believe the Will of D stands for devil. It means you lived, which is devil backwards. Luffy smiled in the face of death. He accepted his death with no regrets. This would go with how Satan rebelled against God, and how Corazon mentioned that the D are enemies of gods. The constant cycle of life and death, inheritance of will, and the persistence of dreams creates a powerful connection. Devil fruits, just like the Will of D, continue this cycle. They carry on the legacy of their users. No matter how many times Emu would wipe out civilization, humanity would always come back and rebuild itself. Whether you live or die, life will keep moving forward. One is all is one. Peace. So we're almost at the end of the video. To all of you that are still here, thank you. You all are amazing. So in conclusion, I believe devils, gods, and humans have been living together since the beginning of time. Luffy is supposed to represent Satan and Lucifer. I believe Oda is challenging the idea of what is a devil and what is a god. Like for example, what if Lucifer was right when rebelling against God and God was wrong? Emu, who is believed to be a godlike figure, wiped out an ancient civilization with a nationwide transmutation circle or some kind of magic circle, trapping the souls of everyone in fruits in the process. The threads of life, death, and dreams are cleverly woven together by Oda, creating a narrative that mirrors the eternal cycle of life. One is all is one, connects the destinies of individuals and the very essence of the world they live in. Thank you all for watching my video. It would mean so much to me if you subscribe to my channel. Until next time, peace. If you're still here, I want to give a big shout out to Kusoland and Tainted Marth. If you haven't subscribed to their channels yet, do it now!